Hey, it is 12 noon on Friday, and it is December 23rd today, so almost Christmas. Kind of exciting. A lot of people, they're already vacation. They're already in Christmas mode, which I get. I've been in Christmas mode since the beginning of November, but the difference is I'm still here working, and you should be too. And maybe you want to take some time off or whatever that may be, so be it, to each their own. But what we're going to be talking about today is New Year's resolutions. Got a lot of really good topics on here, and you guys watching live on the stream right now, make sure to put in your comments of what your resolutions are, because that's what we want to hear about today, what your resolutions are and how you're going to stay committed to them. New Year's resolutions, they're a crazy thing. It's going from December 31st to January 1st. It's change of a year, and everybody looks at this like this is some big thing that's going to happen, and it is. It's celebrated all over the world, fireworks, massive craziness. But when you wake up the next day, it's just another day. You're just waking up, and it's just another day. The world hasn't changed around you. The only thing that's changed is the calendar. So everyone tuning in right now, like I said, put in your comments what your resolution are and what it is that you're doing to stay committed to those resolutions. When we come back from this short commercial break, we're going to be talking a little bit more about New Year's resolutions. First, number one, making sure you're making the right resolutions. Number two, when to start those resolutions. Guess what? It's not January 1st. And number three, we're going to be talking more about how to stay committed to those resolutions. So come December 31st next year, you're not thinking way back to the beginning of January when you started your resolution, but maybe that just lasted a couple days for you. So stay tuned. This is State of Real Estate, and I am John Carissimo.
When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment.
Hey, I'm John Carissimo, and I'm here to tell you today about Ask the Instructor. This is every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm going to be live answering your questions, so tune in. You can get on Facebook, on facebook.com/Tampa School, youtube.com/Tampa School, or also on our Success Center, tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. You'll find those links in the description for this video. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm John Carissimo, and I look forward to answering your questions.
After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career.
Hey, if you liked the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, and welcome back to State of Real Estate. Now today we're talking about New Year's resolutions. Now before we get more in detail on the New Year's resolutions, again, if you're watching live, I want to hear what your resolutions are and what you're going to do to stay committed to those, because the whole reason why we're going to putting these out there is to hold yourself accountable. We're going to be talking more about that, to stay in touch with your resolutions so it doesn't come January 15th and you're no longer committed to your New Year's resolution anymore. Now, why do I say January 15th? Why is January 15th the day that I mentioned? I didn't just pick that out of thin air when I'm talking about New Year's resolutions. No, this is actually statistics that show on January 15th, so just 15 days into 2017, 95% of people, that's basically everybody. If we're talking 9 out of 10, it's not even 9 out of 10, it's 9.5 out of 10. 95% of people give up their resolutions, or they've at least broken their resolution by January 15th. So now how are we going to change that and make this any different? How are we going to make this so your New Year's resolution will actually last? So let's talk about these whole resolution things. Now, a New Year's resolution, it's really just a goal. That's basically all we're talking about here. This is just a fancy, hyped up version. It's goal day, basically. This is a holiday for setting goals when we switch over to the new calendar. But again, like I said at the beginning of the show, this is just another day in the year. Going from December 31st to January 1st, waking up that next day, this is just another goal that we're talking about here. So what we need to talk about in order to make sure you follow through on these is, number one, let's make sure that we're setting the right resolutions. That's right. Our first step here is making sure you're setting the right New Year's resolutions. And what do you mean, is this a right New Year's resolution? This is what I want to do. What makes it wrong? Is that really what you want to do? Is this really what your resolution is? Is this really what your goal is, where if you see yourself on December 31st of next year, you're going to be happy if you follow through with this resolution? Now, hopefully you're dreaming big and you will be happy, but let's think now this year. Think back a year ago. Did you set a New Year's resolution around this time? The reason why we're talking about New Year's resolutions today, December 23rd, according to Facebook statistics, this is actually the day where we start to see a lot of talk about New Year's resolutions. We're still, over a week away from December 31st, January 1st, over a week away from the new year and all the fireworks and all the partying and everything that goes on with the new year. So we're still a week away. So why are we talking about this now? Well, from my perspective at least, and from the perspective you ask anyone that is a quote-unquote successful type of person, they're going to tell you that they're working on their goals every single day. So let's think back to last year and think about what your resolution was. And let's just see, because you could talk the talk, but let's see if you really walk the walk. Last year when you set your goal, or anytime, maybe you didn't set a New Year's resolution last year, but you set some sort of goal. If you set a goal last year, is this something that you followed up on? Did you stay committed to this? Was this something that you were working on every single day? Because that's what it takes for these resolutions for a goal, whatever it is that we're calling it. If you're already setting goals every day and working on achieving those goals every day, that's great. This New Year's resolution thing is nothing new to you. But if this is just something you hear people talking about New Year's resolution, you're like, oh, I want to make a New Year's resolution too. Great. That's the first step. You have to want to change. You can't change yourself without actually wanting to change, whether it's wanting to change yourself, to change your business, to change your life situation, whatever it is that you want to change. That's the first step, is actually desiring that change. So again, thinking back to last year, when you or whenever your last goal was that you set, think about when you set that, and then what did you do to follow up on that? Maybe you didn't even get that far. Maybe you didn't even get so far as to follow up on this goal that you set. And that's really a big step to this, is following up on this and staying committed to it. But now going back to what I was saying, let's make sure that we're setting the right goal. That's really our first crucial step here, is making sure we're setting the right goal. Was it because you didn't like that goal, or you didn't really think maybe it sounded nice, but ultimately that's not really something that you wanted? Again, going back to wanting to change. If you don't want to change, and this could, maybe you want to change in general, but you don't really have an idea of what it is that you want to change. You have to decide what it is that you want to change and make that decision. But before you can make that decision and make a decision that you're going to stay committed to, you have to know that this is the decision that you want. So we'll do a quick little exercise here, and I want you to just kind of close your eyes for a second. You can just listen to the sound of my voice. Close your eyes and just think of your ideal lifestyle, whatever that may be, what you look like, what your bank account looks like, what your lifestyle looks like, what it is that represents the ideal situation for you. Think about that for a second, because that's going to help us out and extract this information into what it is for what goals we need to set. Because if you're not shooting for what it is that you really want, chances are you're not going to follow through on that. If you've been dreaming of some vacation, and it's a vacation to Greece, but you know that's an expensive trip, especially if we're going almost from the other side of the world here, and you've been thinking about going there, and you're like, oh, I just want to go in the waters and eat the food there, and all these other things that you've been dreaming about doing there, but you're like, oh, I don't really have so much money, so I'm just going to go on a trip this year to Wisconsin. Or not to pick on Wisconsin or anywhere, but just somewhere that's, we could obviously, Wisconsin may be great, but I'm a fan of cheese. But obviously there's going to maybe be a little bit of a difference there, especially if it's what you want. If you want to go to Wisconsin and Wisconsin is your dream, that's great. But you can see what I'm saying here. If your dream is to go to Greece, but you're going to sell yourself short and say, well, I can never do that. Let's just go to Wisconsin. Are you really going to be happy in Wisconsin when you really want to be in Greece? No. So that's what we're talking about in this first little bit here. You have to really want to achieve this goal. You really have to want what it is that you're striving for. Without that desire for this goal, whatever your resolution is, there's going to be no follow through on it. And that's the key thing to making this happen. If you're not going to follow through on your resolution, what's the point of even wasting your time talking about these resolutions? I mean, really, you're wasting your time, you're wasting everybody else's time when you're telling them that you're going to do this, and come January 15th, you decided you don't want to do that anymore. What was that all about? It's 2 weeks of your life you're never going to be able to get back. Folks, time is the one thing that you're never able to achieve more of. Sure, science can push back the expiration date. Science could push back the expiration date and extend your life, and our lifespans have been increasing over time, but there's always going to be that expiration date. They haven't solved the problem yet of immortality. You're not going to live forever. The money is infinite. That's a lesson for another day where we talk about money and how the infinite supply of that. But time, this is something that almost everybody has the same amount of. Sure, it could be a few years more, a few years less, and maybe significantly more or less, but ultimately, this time you're never able to really get more of. You have a finite amount of that. You don't know when it's going to run out, but it eventually will. So that's a very important commodity. So, moral of the story here, everything that we're talking about, you need to make sure that the goal that you're setting is something that you really want to achieve. Don't sell yourself short. Now you might say, John, how am I going to achieve this lifestyle that I want? I'm dreaming of being a millionaire, and I really want that, but I have no idea how I'm going to be able to do that. Well, there's going to be a lot of details that go along with this, and don't get me wrong, you definitely have to get those details right, but the biggest thing that's underlying into this that you really can't get around, maybe there's a couple ways you can get around this with maybe scamming some people or winning the lottery, but ultimately if you want to get it to that level, you're going to have to put the work in. It's going to take some time. You're going to have to stay committed. You're going to have to be persistent. But overall, the underlying theme is that you're going to want to have to put the work in. You're going to have to put this work in. It's going to take so much work to get to that level. And I have bad news for you. You're probably going to underestimate the amount of work it's going to take to get to that level. So whatever your goal is, whether you want to be a millionaire or you're just trying to get $10,000 saved up so you could do something, it's going to take a lot of work. And it's probably going to take more work than you think it's going to take. So you have to be able to commit to that level of work. And again, this has to be the right goal that we're talking about here in order for you to want to achieve this goal. So that's our first step, is making sure you're setting a goal or a resolution of what it is that you really want. And you've really tapped into your inner being, your inner psyche, and you're really telling yourself, yes, if I achieve this, I'm going to be happy. That's going to fuel me to achieve even more. Because once you hit that ending point, that could get a little bit of sad. If you do set this awesome goal and then you achieve that awesome goal and you think this realistically, you're probably not going to stop at that goal. You're going to be like, well, if I did that, I could do even more. So it's going to lead to more and more and more. But the key is you got to keep stoking the fire. You got to keep throwing fuel on the fire to move to that next level. So when we come back after this next break, we're going to be talking more about New Year's resolutions. Again, the key thing that we've talked about so far, if you've taken anything away from this, is make sure you're setting the right goal. If you're not setting the right goal, you're going to be in for trouble. This is basically going to be a whole waste of time. So think about that on the break. What is the right goal? If you're watching along with us live here, put it in the comments what your resolution is. If you're already knowing how you're going to commit to that, put that in the comments as well, because that's what we're going to be talking about next. You're watching State of Real Estate. I'm John Corsimo, and this show is brought to you by Tampa School of Real Estate.
When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment. 'Cause 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 '
Hey, I'm John Chrisman. I'm here to tell you today about Ask the Instructor. This is every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm going to be live answering your questions. So tune in. You can get on Facebook, on facebook.com/Tampa School, youtube.com/Tampa School, or also on our Success Center, tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. You'll find those links in the description for this video. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm John Cursmo, and I look forward to answering your questions.
After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career.
Hey, if you liked the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, and welcome back to State of Real Estate. I'm John Chrisman. This show is brought to you by Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're thinking about starting or enhancing your career in real estate, give us a call. Phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. You can also visit us online at tampaschoolofrealestate.com. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com. So before we went on break, we were talking about this idea of New Year's resolutions and making sure that you're setting the right resolution to begin with, because that's really the key. All these steps go in sequence. You can't skip right to step two. If you don't set the right goal, step two is going to be a lot more difficult, and it's probably not going to be accomplished. So step one is making sure that you're making the right resolutions. You're choosing something it is that you really want to change about yourself, about your situation, your lifestyle, whatever it may be. So hopefully you have something like that in mind. Now, our next step here, this is going to be the planning aspect of this. So we're talking about some lofty goals that might be something that you want to achieve, but you're really not quite sure how it is that you're going to achieve something like that. So in order to reach these higher level goals, again, it's going to take a lot of work to get to that point, and that first little bit of work is actually writing out your plan, putting down on paper what it is that you need, or doing it digitally now, whatever way you want to do it. Just get it figured out, what mechanics it's going to take to achieve that goal. Because yeah, it's great to say this is what you want, but now the question is, okay, this is what I know what I want. Now, how do I get it? What do I have to do to get to it? And now the best way to think about this, because there's a lot of ways people get led astray when they're thinking about how they get to the end of this goal, how it is that they get to the end of the maze, to the end of the race, whatever way it is that you want to look at this. And in order to get to that ending point, there's a sequence of steps. Just like getting to ultimately achieving your goal, there's these sequence of steps that you're going to be taking. The same thing going through all this, there's the sequence of steps to achieve this now in a more realistic way. So if we're talking about an income goal, well, what is it that you're doing to make that income? Now, the way I like to kind of visualize this and kind of dissect this down, and basically what you're doing, you have your goal in mind, and so that's the first step. If you don't already have your goal, if you're watching this in the replay, rewind back to that beginning part and figure out what it is that you really want. Go back to part one and see what it is that you really want. Now, once you have that in mind, we're going to talk about this. So let's say that it's something that, let's say that you have the goal of, let's say it's just $100,000, which that's a great goal. Don't get me wrong. If you could set a goal for $100,000 of income and achieve that, I don't care where your income level is at right now. Maybe you're already achieving that level of income, which that's maybe not the best goal. Maybe you need to set your sights a little higher, because again, going back to step one, is that really something that's going to make you truly happy? So once you have that understanding of what it is that you want, now we're going to go ahead and backtrack to what it is that you need to do to actually achieve this goal. So let's say, again, this is a real estate show here, so let's talk about a real estate scenario. Now this applies to any business, any person, anywhere can apply these principles, but specifically here we're going to be talking about this in terms of real estate. So let's say your goal is $100,000, and if you haven't checked it out yet, on our Success Center, we actually have this whole kind of calculator where it helps out for, especially when you're new to real estate, and even if you're not new to real estate, just being able to work with these numbers and punch them in really quickly. You could actually even have it emailed directly to you, so you could save a copy of that. That's going to be important for this next step that we're going to be talking about here. But basically the way this calculator works is it breaks down going from what your goal is, so what your income goal is, and the default value in there is the $100,000. But now if we think of in real estate and real estate sales, getting $100,000 we'll just say in commission, because we have to break this down even to income and further, which again, there's a lot of details that are behind these plans, especially the bigger these plans get. The harder your plan gets to achieve. I don't want to say that you can't do it, because really anything's possible. You could achieve whatever it is that you set your mind to, as long as you're willing to put in the work for it and you're doing the right work to get to that. Think of the mazes that you maybe have solved when you're a kid, where you're tracing your way through all the little lines trying to get to the center, to get to like where the cheese is. If you've seen the videos online of the mice trying to get to the cheese. The easiest way, and you probably use this little shortcut once you figure this out, mazes were never the same for you again when you're a kid, but you start from the end and you basically just kind of like backtrack your way out to the beginning. And doing that, it's a lot easier when you think of where the end goal is, and now you're backtracking to where you are right now. Now all of a sudden everything, it's a lot easier to kind of understand what the concurrent steps are. And it's very important that you utilize this aspect of it here, because if you think of, let's say you pulled up Google Maps or Waze on your phone and you're trying to get to someplace, and Waze says that you need to take this road and that road and this road and that road and you'll be at your destination. Well, let's say you turn off Waze and you're like, oh, I'll figure this out. I know where that destination is. It's south of here. I just got to keep going so many feet this way and then another turn here and there and so on and so forth. And you're like, I know the city. I can find my way around. And you'll probably get to your destination, but it probably will be a little bit longer than it would have been with Waze. And I know I've done this as well. I'll be driving in the car and it'll tell me to go this way. I'm like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I know you get real-time traffic and whatnot, but that doesn't sound right. I know these streets better than your real-time traffic. And then only to find out that I put myself in some sort of trap where I'm stuck in between all these cars now because I didn't want to listen to the map and the GPS of telling me where to go. So same principle applies when we're talking now about your goals. Because if you veer off course, so the fastest point from point A to point B is a straight line. So going from point A to point B, if you could go straight towards point B and point B is your end goal, that's going to be your fastest way to get to that end goal. Now, if you start kind of maneuvering around, oh, maybe there's something over here that's a distraction, and then you go over this way, and then you're maneuvering around, you can still get to your goal, but it's probably going to take a lot longer. So that's why we're doing this exercise now of what your end point is, and now we're trying to trace our way back. And that little calculator, especially if you're in real estate sales, that little calculator is really helpful to kind of help break this down. Matter of fact, we're going to pull this up right now, and we could actually work with some of these numbers. So if you want to follow along with this, you could actually go ahead and go on our Success Center. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. And you're going to look for an article that's titled How to Write a Business Plan. So tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. And then just look for that article, How to Write a Real Estate Business Plan. It should be right there on the first page. And then if you scroll down, you'll actually find the little calculator that kind of walks you through all this stuff here. So this first little bit is kind of understanding what total commission would be. So, and this is something, especially if you're in real estate already, you probably already know how to calculate commission. But let's say we're just going to use the default values. But remember, the beauty of this calculator is you can plug in all your own information in here. If you have a higher value home that you're typically working with, or maybe a lower value home you're typically working with, you can plug that in here and understand what it's going to take to achieve your goal. So the default value in here is $250,000. That's about an average price home, pretty average price home. So we'll take that $250,000. Let's say you're charging 3% commission. That means on a $250,000 sale price, you're going to end up getting $7,500 worth of total commission. So from $250,000 times 3%, that gives you your $7,500. So now we're starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. We understand that if we sell a house for $250,000, we're going to end up getting a gross commission of $7,500. Now, you have to be able to kind of break this down even further, and this is calculator will cover most things, but there's going to be other stuff such as expenses you may have and things like that you'll also need to factor in when we get to the end of this here. So our next little bit is calculating the split. So in here we have a basic split of 70%, meaning the broker would take 30% of that and we get the remaining 70%. So we take that $7,500, we multiply it by 70%, and we get down to $5,250. So now we're walking away with the transaction with $5,250. And you can see how knowing these details and breaking this down into its core elements, I mean, we're talking about a $2,000 difference here. And that's a significant amount of income that we're talking about, especially if we multiply this out by 10 transactions. That's $20,000 worth of income basically now that you have to account for. And that's going to be a big chunk, especially if we're looking at this on a yearly basis. So you have to be able to account for that, breaking it down from the total commission and then down to your split out of that. And now you have an idea of how much you could get per unit sold. what do you get based on your average price? And this is where these numbers can be a little bit deceiving, and you have to really make sure you're keeping your numbers accurate. If you have to monitor, we're going to get into this more later, but you have to monitor what your average sale price is for your properties, because if you start selling a lot more properties that are less than $250,000, your average sale price is going to go down. If you're still banking on that $250,000 sale price, you're not going to be able to hit that goal, because you're going to get lower and lower commissions every single time, and your average commission is going to be dropping. So if that's fine if you start selling more lower end properties. Hey, maybe you found a niche there. Maybe you're working with some investors and they're buying properties really easily, and maybe it's easier for you to sell these properties as opposed to the $250,000 houses that you're selling before. Yeah, it's less money, but if it's easier, again, that concept of time is a big thing to factor in with all this. But now you have to adjust your business plan and adjust your numbers to keep track of that. And that's something that we're going to talk about later, is revisiting this and making sure that you're lining up with what your goals are. This isn't just a one-time thing of setting this plan. If you really want to achieve your goals, you're going to have to be revisiting this plan over and over and over and over and over, and making sure that you're following up with whatever it is that you laid out as your goal. So we have our basic commission figured out. Now, next thing we're going to be figuring out in this calculator here is putting in our desired annual gross income. So this is step 3 if we're following along in that calculator. We take our $100,000 goal, and you can put whatever goal it is that you want in here. So if your goal is $1 million, put $1 million in there. Again, you're not going to be excited about $100,000 if you really want $1 million. So put your goals in there, and this will open your eyes to what work it is that you have to do to achieve that $1 million, because it's going to be a lot more work. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, especially on the staying committed aspect of this year, but it's going to be so much more work. Yes, it's only 10 times the amount of income. So in this case here, if we're selling $250,000 houses, that means we need about 19 closings. So let's say 20 closings that we need. So if we go ahead and take this up to the $1 million level, that's only 200 closings, which that does sound like quite a bit, but now you might even need significantly more than that, because as you scale up your business, and again, this doesn't apply just to real estate, this is whatever business it is that you're dealing with, as you scale up your business, you're going to have more cost. So just because if we have our gross revenue here and we have our net profit here, they're not going to go up like this. Your revenue will probably start going up here, and your gross profit's going to stay, it'll hopefully go up as well. But those expenses are probably going to increase, which is going to eat into your overall income. So yes, you may be able to increase your revenue, but now your expenses might grow as well. So maybe if you have $1 million in gross commission, you're now only getting $200,000 of net income, which is great. That's double the net income, but it's a lot more work to get to that. But now the work, it's not just reliant on you. Maybe you bring in some staff, maybe you bring in some freelance contractors, maybe you're not taking your own pictures of the property anymore and you're paying somebody to take the pictures for you. Because again, this concept of time and understanding how this factors into it as well. Everybody focuses on the money aspect here. The money's out there, and the way our currency system works, it's almost an infinite supply. It really is an infinite supply of money that we have out there, but the time, that's a very limited commodity that we have, so that's something you have to take into account. You can't do it all yourself. Yes, it's great to capitalize. If you're getting $100,000 out of $100,000, that's great, but if you want to get to that $1 million level, you're not going to be able to do that at that same rate, because at the $100,000 level, maybe you're 100% committed and you can't do anymore. Maybe you're already working. There's 168 hours in a week. Let's say you're already working like 80 hours, 90 hours, 100 hours a week, and you can't physically put in any more time into this. So you're going to be capped out at that point. And if you want to grow to that higher level, you're going to have to add sales associates to your team. You're going to have to add admin support. You're going to have to do all these other things that's going to be able to help you grow that top line. If you can grow the top line, the bottom line isn't going to grow as quickly, but the more you can grow that top line, the more steady you're going to get growth out of that bottom line. So that's something to pay attention to as well when you're planning this all out. The bigger your goals get, the more details you have to plan for, because now we're not just planning about what you have to do, we're planning about who you have to bring on and what they're going to have to do to achieve this ultimate major goal. Now you're leading a group of people as opposed to just leading yourself. If this all seems like a lot to you, then let's reel it back here. Let's start off with learning how to lead yourself, because 95% of people can't do that. 95% of people can't even lead themselves to January 15th to meet their resolutions. Like I said, January 15th, that's not a number I'm pulling up and making up. This is a statistic. By January 15th, 95% of people are going to have broken their resolutions. So if you're thinking that you might not be able to make your resolutions last past January 15th, you're in trouble because you can't even lead yourself at that point. So let's not even think about leading other people until you're able to actually lead yourself past January 15th. Another statistic for you, it typically takes about 21 days to seal in a habit. So for the 5% of you out there that are actually following through on your resolutions, following through on your goals past January 15th, if you can make it to January 21st, 21 days of following through on this habit, now we have an opportunity that this is going to be something that's going to be ingrained into you. Now this is just the beginning of the habit, so it's not like you could go cut loose there and all of a sudden everything's going to be easy street. It's still going to be a lot of work, but you're past a big milestone there. So try to make it at least until January 21st, and we're going to keep revisiting this over and over and over again for what your goals are. But that's one of the key things is making sure you could stay committed to this here. And you have to truly understand this. So now breaking down this commission example further. So let's say we needed $100,000 worth of income. What we're doing basically is we're taking the commission, the amount of income per transaction, and we're dividing that out by our annual gross income. So we're dividing that out to say, okay, if each unit is going to be $5,250 that we get off of each unit, that's going to be a revenue for each unit. How many units do we need to sell over the course of this year to achieve this goal? That's what we're doing. We're just doing some simple division, and the numbers say about 19.05. So let's round it up to 20. It's always better to be a little bit more conservative in these estimates because, again, your average home price might drop down. There's all these other factors that could get in here that could complicate this. So it's always good to kind of estimate a little bit further. So now going back to our maze example, we're trying to get to the middle. We're trying to get to where the cheese is, to where the money is, to where our goal ultimately lies. We identified that our goal is this, and that's a lot farther than what most people go, especially identifying the right goal. You have identified that this is your goal, and now we have to basically track back what we're going to do to get to that. So we already figured out we need to sell 20 properties to get to that $100,000 goal. So now let's think about what it's going to, and you're not done there. So don't think you're done. That's not the end of this planning here. Again, especially if you have a more lofty goal, there's going to be a lot of details that are required with this here. So to get to that 20 property sale, because that's our next concept, our next step that we're trying to achieve is this 20 properties per year. So now in order to get to 20 properties per year, what do you have to do? That's our question now. We're thinking back a little bit farther, and maybe you're like, okay, perfect, yeah, $100,000, 20 properties, I could do that. Let's do it. And I love the enthusiasm, but now let's keep backing track and let's see what we're going to need to do to get to that 20 property number. Because again, you could achieve whatever it is that you want as long as you understand what it's going to take to achieve it, and you're actually going to put in the work to achieve this. So, thinking back in this closing process, in order to get to a closing, we have to have a contract. So now let's figure out, and this is where you have to understand the details of this here. Is every single contract going to close? Probably not. Yeah, you might get lucky, and you might have a lucky streak where you have these contracts all closing back to back to back to back. But again, we're going to try to be a little conservative here. So at the very least, we're going to overshoot our goals, because if your goal is $100,000, you end up with $120,000. You come talk to me, because I'm sure you're going to be very angry with my logic with all this here. No, you're not going to be angry at all. If you hit $120,000, you're going to be ecstatic. You're going to be hungry for more. So let's just say about half of these contracts are not going to close, which that's a conservative estimate. You might get better numbers than that, but that's a good place to be at. If you assume that half of the contracts aren't going to close, and don't get me wrong, you should do everything it is that you can to get these closed. If you get all the contracts to close, you've now just doubled the income. So now instead of just $100,000, it's $200,000 that we're talking about here. But we have to be realistic. Not all of these contracts are going to close. So let's say if we need 20 units, how many contracts do we have to have, factoring in that half of them aren't going to close? So if we need 20 properties to sell and half of them aren't going to close, what we're going to do is take our 20 divided by 0.50 divided by 50%, or we're basically just kind of multiplying by 2 here. We need 40 contracts, I should say. 40 contracts to get to 20 closings, and we get our 20 closings in 1 year. That's going to equate now down to our income goal of $100,000. And you're thinking, great, so now I know I got to get 40 contracts, that'll make me get 20 closings. Great, I'm ready to go out there, send me in, coach. No, we're not quite there yet. We still have to get further steps, because it's not where you could just walk out there and just present a piece of paper to just random people on the street and expect them to sign this and buy a $250,000 home. No, so we have to think of now how we're going to get to that contract level. Again, we're just working our way out of the maze. We're going from the outside in. We're going from our goal out. Again, we're trying to trace our steps out of this to get to where we are now. And where we are right now, in this room, we don't have anybody in here that's looking to buy a property right now. So I can't, or even if they were, I can't just give them a piece of paper, hey, buy this property, sign off on this, it's $250,000, trust me, it's a good deal, sign it, I just need to get 19 more of these so I can hit my goal, so you go ahead and help me out here and just sign this. No, that's not going to happen. So now, before we could have a contract, think of this real estate process. What do you have to do before you could have a contract? You have to have an appointment. So in order to get a contract, because let's say I'm in this room here, and there is somebody that wants to purchase a home. So let's say they come to me and say, hey, I want to buy a home. They're not going to just expect me to hand them a contract right there for their dream home, and they'll sign off on it sight unseen. No, they're going to want to see this house. So now we have to factor in how many appointments we're going to need to get to this level of contracts. So how many appointments we need to have to get to our closing numbers that we're expecting. So if we need 40 contracts, how many appointments are going to equate to a contract? So if we think about this here, and this is where our calculator on the Success Center. So again, if you're trying to follow along with what these numbers are that I'm going through here, go on tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. That's tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. You'll find the article, How to Write a Real Estate Business Plan. This goes hand in hand with what we're talking about today about goals and resolutions and so on and so forth. It's really going to help us dissect what it is that we need to achieve our goals. So in our little calculator here, we have 40% of our appointments are going to be contracts. And you'll notice as we go down this list here, we're going to get a little bit more and more conservative. Because yes, if you have a contract, it's pretty likely to close. It's 50-50. 50-50, we're probably going to close. We might still not close. Hopefully we get those numbers higher in reality than that. But again, you want to account for things that could come up and get in your way. So the amount of appointments that could turn into contracts, let's say it's 40%. Well, now, if 40%, again, we're backtracking with this here, and if you're not following all this math that I'm doing, just go in the calculator on the Success Center, and it'll actually punch everything in for you. You just put in what your income is and what the property goals are, and you could tweak the numbers once you start to understand them a little bit more to your metrics. So we have to go from our appointment to our contract, and let's say about 40% of our appointments are going to result in a contract, or 40% of the appointments of the people that we're taking out are going to result in a contract. And that number might even be a little bit high. You might have to go in there based on your own numbers. This is where you're going to want to keep track of these things and continually update this. That's why this little calculator is great. We're not taking this down. It stays up here. You go in here, punch in your own data, and figure out what it is that you need to do. Once you start to know this enough, you won't need this calculator because you'll know how to do the calculations yourself. But it's a really helpful tool that helps you keep track of where it is that you're heading and where it is that you want to go. So let's say 40% of our appointments turn into a contract. Well, how many appointments do we need now? Because again, we're tracking our way back. We wanted to get 20 closings, so that's 40 contracts that we need. And if we go 40% divided by the 40 contracts, that brings us now to 83 appointments that we need. So we need 83 appointments to get to our 40 contracts, to get to our 20 closings. So now you can see that there's more work involved here, but now, how do we get the appointment? Again, we have to track back even further because we need to be to where we are right now and understand what we need to do right now to start moving forward with this goal. As we're working it backwards, and once we get back to where we are right now, no need to go back any further. Once you can get to where you are now we can talk about moving forward and pushing this forward. So, before we could have an appointment, we have to have a lead. So we have to have a lead, somebody interested in a property. Because if I just go up to somebody and I say, hey, I'm John Chrismo, I'm a realtor. Oh, you know what? I need a realtor. I need somebody to sell me a house. Great. Will that necessarily equate into an appointment? Maybe they're just saying they need a realtor. Maybe they already have a realtor. Maybe they already signed some agreement with another realtor, and you can't even legally represent them until they terminate that agreement with the other realtor. So not every lead is going to turn into appointments. And as a matter of fact, it's a very slim percentage. Now, this depends on what type of leads that you're getting. If you're getting high quality leads, then those are more likely to turn into appointments. And again, that's why you want to keep referencing back to this calculator, or however it is that you're using this business plan of what these metrics are, and make the adjustments so you can continue to tweak this and understand where it's going to take you to that point B. So if we're looking at the number of leads we need to get to our 83 appointments. And if you think of 83 appointments, now if we're just trying to put these numbers into perspective here, we have 360 days a year. That's roughly, and my math might be wrong here, but let's say about one appointment, it'll be conservative, about every 2 or 3 days. So now you can start to understand, and at the end of this calculator, it's going to do that math for us here, but basically we need an appointment every 2 to 3 days to keep our pipeline full. And then we also have to account for time we're taking off and all these extra factors that could hinder these circumstances and change these circumstances. So the number of leads that turn into appointments, let's say it's 25%. That's our default value in here. That may very well be true, but again, this could be a higher number, it could be a lower number. It really just depends on the quality of your leads. If these are face-to-face leads, that number is probably going to be a lot higher, but if these are internet leads that you're maybe getting through Zillow or your website or something like that, that number may be lower, which is okay. But just understand that's going to take some more work, and you have to adjust these numbers here to understand how much more work and quantify that information so you know what it's going to take to get to point B. So let's say 25% of our leads are going to turn into an appointment, because we have to go from a lead to an appointment to a contract to a closing. And when we get to the closing, that's when we finally get paid. But there's all these steps kind of leading up to it. And yeah, the steps are going to involve some work, which is okay. Some might take more than the others, and that's where you have to kind of balance this stuff all out. But ultimately, we're trying to figure out what we need to go from where we are today to our point B, our final ending goal and reaching that goal. So if 25% of our leads are going to turn into appointments, and only 25%, because that's basically meaning that only 1 out of every 4 leads is going to actually turn into an appointment, hopefully you can get those numbers higher. Some good training will definitely help you boost those numbers up and turn more leads into appointments. But let's just say it's 25%. If we need 83 appointments, we go ahead and divide that again, we're going to end up being 332 leads that we need to have. So now looking at this again, 365 days in a year, we need a lead almost every single day, a new lead every single day to hit this goal of $100,000. And now if this sounds like too much work for you, let's see how we could tweak this in other ways. If maybe it falls more now into selling a higher value home. Because if we instantly bump this up, and this is what's great about this little calculator here, we'll go ahead and bump this up now. Instead of $250,000, we'll bump this right up to $500,000. If we're selling a $500,000 house, which is going to take more work and more details and more understanding to get to that $500,000 property level, but now if that's the case, we just need about 10 closings, 10 properties sold, 10 units sold to reach that goal. So now you can see how we're cutting our work down for the units that are sold, so maybe we want to focus more on the units. Or maybe you want to just kind of work this stuff through like an assembly line, and you're going to work with more lower value properties, and you just have to spend less time going through all these properties to achieve that. So that's how you can play with these numbers here and understand what it is that you need to work with here. But let's stick with our $250,000 number so you can kind of get a better idea out of all this here based off of our original targets. So we need 332 leads out of the year. So that's pretty much our end goal. Because if we think where we are today, now there's another step you could even work into this of contacts, and how many contacts is going to lead into a lead, how many people that you meet in your general form of business is going to end up into being some sort of lead, which that may apply if you're doing door knocking or you're doing some sort of face-to-face prospecting or things like that. If you're doing internet marketing, those are usually called impressions rather than contacts, because these are just people that are seeing you as opposed to people that are actually kind of raising their hand saying they want help with something. So it kind of depends on how it is you're structuring your business. The key here is following.
When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment.
Hey, I'm John Chrismo, and I'm here to tell you today about Ask the Instructor. This is every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm going to be live answering your questions, so tune in. You can get on Facebook, on facebook.com/Tampa School, youtube.com/Tampa School, or also on our Success Center, tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. You'll find those links in the description for this video. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm John Chrismo, and I look forward to answering your questions.
After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career.
Hey, if you like the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching. Alrighty, and welcome back to State of Real Estate. So we're talking about what it takes to get down to the goal is you want to achieve. We're using a real estate example here, using our business plan calculator you can find on tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. The article's titled How to Write a Real Estate Business Plan. Go in there and you can follow along and enter in your own information in this little calculator. So what we're doing now is we're working backwards to get to so we were using our example of $250,000 of a property, and that we want to achieve basically $100,000 worth of income. So we're tracking our way down. We ended up with about $5,000 and some change per property that we sold. That equated for $100,000, and we needed 20 properties that needed to sell. We needed 20 closings. To get to the 20 closings, we needed 40 contracts. To get to the 40 contracts, we needed 83 appointments. To get to the 83 appointments, we needed 332 leads. So what this means basically is that we need to get a lead almost every day. But again, there's more details that we could kind of iron out here so we get a better understanding of how to lay out this property here, lay out our goal. So the step 7 that's in this calculator, because again, this is a really great calculator that'll help you out with figuring out all this information. We take how many weeks we want off in a year. Because if you're willing to work every single day, I commend you. And I would really respect that. But the reality is, most people aren't going to work every single day out of the year. They're going to want to take some sort of vacation. They're going to want to take some time off to spend with their families, to take some breathing room, and that's fine. Maybe you don't want a vacation. Maybe you do. Maybe you want more than 4 weeks worth of vacation. The key is planning for this year. Now, there's a whole other story on your momentum and things like that, which we'll get into in another episode. But as far as understanding now how much work you need to do every single day, let's say you're going to put your 4 weeks off. And now our next step here is how many days we're going to work per week. So the default value here is 5. But now let's say that you want to kind of balance things out. And you can put whatever numbers that you want in here. This is your plan, and that's what's great about this. It's fully customizable. But let's say you want to take more weeks off. So let's say you want to take 8 weeks off. You want to spend 2 months of time basically not doing anything, which is probably going to be a lot better vacation than just the 4 weeks. Or maybe that's even too much for you. Maybe you just want to spend 2 weeks, but you can kind of balance this out. Maybe instead of working 5 days per week, maybe you'll only work 4 days per week, or maybe you'll work 6 or even 7 days a week and just take more vacation time. Whatever that may be, maybe you'll work 7 days a week and take no vacation time. If you could keep up with that and not burn yourself out and keep going, then you'll be in a really good situation. So plug those numbers in here, but we'll use this basic example, 4 weeks off with 5 days per week. That equates out to basically 240 days per year. And that's what's great about this calculator. It does all of this math for you. So 240 days per year of what we're going to work. So if we're looking at 2017, this is basically saying that you're going to work 240 days in 2017, which you think about that, that's a lot of time off. I mean, 365 days a year, only working 240 days out of that. I mean, that's a lot of time, which, yeah, definitely you want to have a life worth living, not just work all the time, unless maybe that brings you joy. Whatever, that's a different concept for another day that we'll talk about. So in this example, 240 days per year that we're working. So now once we understand how many days per year it is that we're going to be working, in 2017 we're going to be working 240 days, what metrics are going to lead to our targets? So looking at this, we would need 1.38 leads per day. I don't like that number of 1.38. And now you can see how my rough estimating was completely off. Completely off. Because I said, okay, if we need 332 leads, 365 days a year, that's about one a day. And not even one a day if we're just using 332 divided by 365. But again, you have to account for the details. One of those details is when are you going to actually be working. If you're going to be working 365 days out of the year, then yeah, it's about one lead a day. And if you miss a day here and there, you'll be in good shape still. But if you're only working 240 days out of the year because you're taking 4 weeks off and working 5 days per week, that's going to mean where you now have to bump this up a little bit and get 1.38 leads per day. So what does that tell you? That tells you should shoot for at least 2 leads per day. Because if you're only hitting, if you have more days that are hitting 1 rather than the days that are hitting 2 leads a day, you're going to end up messing up and skewing these statistics, and then your plan won't work out. This plan is great if you actually execute the steps it's going to take to achieve this. So next we have our appointments per week. This would be 1.73 appointments, which that's not bad. That's completely doable. We're obviously going to be spending a lot more time generating leads. Either we do that through some automated method if you have the money to spend and doing some sort of advertising on Zillow or Realtor.com or Trulia or one of these websites, but maybe that's face-to-face advertising. Maybe you're going out there, and this is a great way to get started, is you're just going out and knocking on doors in a neighborhood saying, hey, I'm your local expert in the area. I'm just coming by to drop off my car, see if you wanted to ever kind of discuss coming up with the value of the property or whatever it is that your proposition may be for going out there with them. But you're going to have to commit a lot of time to that, and then hopefully generating those 2 leads per day is going to get you to that almost 2 appointments per week. So now if you're thinking about how to spend your time, you need 2 appointments per week. Now, the appointments, those will maybe take you a couple hours. Maybe if you're seeing multiple homes, maybe you're looking at 3 or 4 hours. But that 2 times a week, that's only 8 hours, which leaves a lot of empty space on your calendar. And now this is where a lot of people fall off, especially in the real estate realm in all of this here, is they're not necessarily filling up that white space with good time and time well spent. There's people that may be quote unquote working more than 240 days per year, but half the day they're sitting there on Facebook, they're doing something that's not really contributing to generating business. It's fine to do those things once you have your work done. Get your work done, and then you can go fool around and mess around on Facebook or work on tweaking the color scheme on your website or these little things that aren't ultimately going to translate to sales. You could polish up your bio and all these other little things here, but ultimately you need to think of what it's going to take to get from contacts to leads. What is it you're going to do? Because that's the biggest hurdle. A lot of these other stuff, it's like a domino effect. If you get that first domino pushed down of getting a contact turned into a lead, somebody you know or somebody that just met you turned into an actual lead, that's where you can kind of start moving down to the step. And if you've ever seen these little videos where the dominoes go all tumbling down, the first couple ones, they go rather slow, but then they take off. They start moving, and that's the same way this momentum works. Once you've actually can convert somebody into a lead, it's going to be easier to get more appointments with them. You get to know them better. You're more likely to contract, and you're more likely to get closing, and then you're hopefully doing this simultaneously with multiple people to keep that momentum up and to stay committed to these goals. So we need about our 2 appointments per week, and then for closings per month, it's about 1.59. Again, we'll round that up because you never want to round down with this. That's only going to leave you disappointed when you get to the end of the maze, the end of your goal, whatever that may be. So let's say about 2 closings a month. So looking at what your schedule would be basically for a $250,000 property where you want to make $100,000 in 2017, you're going to need about 2 closings a month, you're going to need about 2 appointments per week, and you're going to need to generate about 2 leads per day. If you actually follow those numbers, you'll probably end up being higher than that if you stay committed, which is going to be our next little bit here that we're going to talk about in this. So we've identified all the details and the problems that could arise, and this was a very simple example. So if you're coming up with this on your own, you're trying to use this to write up your business plan, take into account the other things, your expenses, and all the other stuff that you need to factor in, because that $100,000 you're using, that's gross commission. That's not necessarily your net income. You need to take your expenses out of all of that. So let's say if you have $50,000 worth of expenses, but you still want to walk away with $100,000, that means that gross income actually needs to be $150,000 rather than just the $100,000. Again, it's dissecting all these little details. And at this time of the year because in December, typically the market kind of slows down, but now this is a gripe I have with a lot of people in the real estate industry, is yes, the market does slow down a little bit in December, but it's, again, like 95%. That's not an exact statistic, optimistic, but you go in real estate offices in December, it's a completely different scene than what it is in January, February, or especially in the more springtime type of season where the business really starts to pick up. Yes, there's cycles to this business, but I guarantee you there's still people out there in December. There's people that are out there today looking to buy a house. I don't care that it's December 23rd and Christmas is on Sunday. There's people that need a place to live and they're out there looking for a home. And there's agents that are committed to serving these people, and they're willing to work on days like today. There's going to be probably agents that are out there tomorrow on Christmas Eve, of all things. No, they're not at the shopping mall trying to pick up last-minute presents. They're out there trying to earn a living because there's business to be had. Yes, that business does kind of creep down, but with the number of agents that kind of take the month off and go on vacation during this time, maybe a smart move to do if you're willing to take looking to take a vacation. But there's still business to be made. So especially if you're first starting out, I don't recommend taking a vacation right away. When everybody else is on vacation, that's open waters. You read a book called Blue Ocean Strategy, and it's all about finding the open blue waters, and that's what December becomes. Yeah, there's not as much business, but your competition is all taking a break. They're all enjoying holiday festivities, which hopefully you can do that next year if you've met your income goals. But if you really need it and you really want it, that's where you can really take this time to fully utilize the scenario we're in. So let's talk about now our way to make sure that you stay committed to this, because that's the big problem really in all of this is staying committed. And the way to stay committed basically is to revisit these plans every single day, every single morning. Okay, have yourself a little pad of paper like this, a notebook, write it down on the notes pad on your app on your phone, whatever it is you need to do. But every single day, write those goals down. So if we're using that scenario we just did, let's say that we need to come up with 2 leads. So you write down in your goals, I need to get 2 leads today. And if you've gone even farther, for whatever your strategy may be, that you're out there talking to people, maybe you're hanging out in the paint section in Home Depot, which actually know some agents that actually do this. It's kind of a neat story. So if you think of people going to get some paint at Home Depot, there's a couple different reasons why they may be in the paint section at Home Depot. One of the reasons may be that they just decided to paint their house. Maybe their significant other has been nagging them to paint the house and they're finally doing it, so they're there buying paint, which is one reason why they could be in the paint section. We have another reason why they could be in the paint section, and this is maybe they just bought a house. So maybe they just bought a house and they're looking to repaint it because they didn't like the colors that were in there. But now our third reason, this is why agents hang out in the paint section, is there may be somebody looking to sell their house. They're thinking about selling and they're like, well, I got to spruce this place up if I'm going to want to get a good amount of money for it. So let's go and get some paint and paint the property. Well, I know a lot of agents that hang out in Home Depot and essentially hit on the customers that are in there and basically say, hey, you looking to sell your house? No, it's a lot more finesse that you have to do. It's like going out to some place to meet people. If you're looking for some sort of significant other, you're not going to go and say, hey, you wanna come to my place. That's not going to be your first line that you're going to say to them. That's really not going to work. Maybe you'll have somebody that says, yes, I am looking to sell my house, but probably not. You'll have to kind of warm them up to it. So think about that. That's one way you could do this. But whatever it is that you're doing, put that in your notebook. My goal is to go to Home Depot and talk to 100 people so I can get 2 leads. And whatever those numbers end up being, my goal is to spend X amount of dollars on advertising today so I can get 2 leads. Or my goal now, because those internet leads mean absolutely nothing unless you contact them right away. So my goal is to contact every single internet lead within a minute or 2 minutes or whatever it is that you're aiming for to achieve your objectives. The key thing is to keep revisiting this, and every single day, at least once a day. If you only do it one time, do it when you first wake up, because that's really going to help motivate you for the day. But at the very least, you want to do it at the beginning of the day, and hopefully maybe again during the day, and then maybe before you go to sleep, because when you wake up in the morning, what you're going to be remembering, unless you had some crazy nightmare, is what you thought of right before you go to sleep. So that's another good time to write down your goals, is right before you go to sleep at night. That was really saving the best for last. That's really the key thing that people lose. Even if you didn't do all the planning and coming up with all the goals, maybe you just know something. Maybe your resolution is that you want to lose some weight. So you're going to write in your goal book, and these could even be broad goals, because the more you write them down, the more these details are going to start coming out if you keep writing these down over and over and over again. So maybe your goal is, I'm only going to eat small amounts today, or whatever that may. Just start with something like that. But if you're writing these things down every single day, that's going to help you out more more than you could even imagine. But the key thing is, because most people by January 15th, 95% of them are going to break their resolution. If you're writing your resolution down every day, maybe you'll break it, but just keep writing it down. Don't let yourself get discouraged based on that, and you'll be able to continue pulling forward and moving forward. And then what it's going to turn into, and this is ultimately what you want to achieve, is that you're not just setting resolutions at the end of every single year for what 2017 or 2018 or 2019 or 2020 or whatever the next year to come may be, because you don't want to do that. You don't want to set a resolution just one day out of the year, and that's the only time you look at your goals. The key is to write these goals down every single day, and it's okay if those goals change. It's okay if the details change. Those things are going to happen. You have to account for them and stay focused on what it is that you want to achieve. When you make the decision that this is your goal, you're cutting yourself away of everything else. The Latin roots for decision, if we think of that decision, incision, it basically means to cut. It means we're cutting ourselves away. When we make a decision, we're cutting ourselves away from any other options and any other choices. And if we're staying committed, we're truly making that decision. If we're not staying committed, it's not a true decision. You haven't decided it's what you want to do. So you have to decide this is what you want to do, stay committed to that, and eventually you're going to achieve your goals. So that's everything I have for you guys today about New Year's resolutions. I hope this show has helped you guys out. If it has, make sure you hit the like button, hit share, hit subscribe, because we will do a show like this every Friday. Make sure you tune in on Wednesday at 12 noon where we do Ask the Instructor. We're actually going into some details in solving some math problems and talking about different concepts of the real estate industry. We get into more technical stuff. Today it's a little bit more kind of mastermind, growing your business type of thing. So that's 12 on Wednesdays, Ask the Instructor. Every Friday, 12 noon, we're doing State of Real Estate. My name is John Carismo, and this show is brought to you by Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're thinking of starting or enhancing your real estate career, give us a call. The phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, that's 813-928-0106. You could also visit us online at tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com. And make sure you check out that Success Center where we have that business plan calculator in there. You can go ahead and punch in some numbers, start figuring out your business plan if you're in the real estate industry. It's been great talking with you guys today. Make sure you tune in Wednesday and then next Friday at 12 noon. I'm John Carismo, and this has been State of Real Estate.
When you look back on your real estate career, you'll remember the moment you decided to begin this journey. The moment when you finally decided it was time for change. The moment when you decided it was time to take charge. The moment that changed the direction of your life forever. Now is that moment.
Hey, I'm John Carismo, and I'm here to tell you today about Ask the Instructor. This is every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm going to be live answering your questions, so tune in. You can get on Facebook, on facebook.com/Tampa School, youtube.com/Tampa School, or also on our Success Center, tampaschoolofrealestate.com/success. You'll find those links in the description for this video. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm John Carismo, and I look forward to answering your questions.
After the show, be sure to visit tampaschoolofrealestate.com. Again, that's tampaschoolofrealestate.com, where you'll find all the information you need to start your career in real estate. Also, be sure to check out our Success Center, where you'll find helpful tips for building a successful real estate career.
Hey, if you liked the show today, be sure to hit like and subscribe and post your comments. Thanks so much for watching.